Good morning, fellow Toastmasters.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. According to Wikipedia, these are some of the most well-known words in American politics. Evidently written by a bunch of liars. 12 of them own slaves. All men are created equal? Let's forget about the slaves. What about me and 50% of this room? What am I to think about a bunch of men who left me out? Who were these guys? A bunch of hypocrites? Should we look upon them with admiration or disdain? An argument can be made that many of them were horrible. Both Thomas Jefferson and George Washington argued that slavery should be abolished, and yet neither one of them bothered to free their slaves until after they died and they freed them in their wills. Many of these men enjoyed intellectual conversations with women, Benjamin Franklin, Adams, and Thomas Jefferson, and yet when it came time to decide who was going to be active in the political life of our country, women were just simply left out. So, do they deserve admiration or disdain? Should we have affection and gratitude for what they did? Or should we blast them for their white male-centric attitudes? To determine which choice is appropriate, I think we need to put them in context of their time. Looking at the world arena, these men came from families that had migrated from Europe. Most countries at the time had centralized governments in the hands of royals. The trouble that our colonists had with the King of England was normal for the day. The king made all the rules. Strong, centralized governments were the norm of the day. A decentralized government with a participating populace was unheard of. A new concept. Looking at the American stage, John Ellis wrote in his book, Founding Brothers, and I'm going to quote, "The inferior position of blacks, the exclusion of Indians from the new society, the establishment of supremacy for the rich and powerful in the new nation, all this was already settled in the colonies by the time of the Revolution." Our founding fathers had a problem. Most of them were forward-thinking and wanted a just society. And yet, there was a culture already in the colonies. Wealth brought access to power. In these times, owning land brought that power. People with no land had no legal status in many countries. Oftentimes, if not slaves, they were still treated as being owned by the landowner, or at least dictated by the landowner. Another historian, Harold Birkin, wrote, "A woman was considered illegal incompetent, along the same lines as children, idiots, and criminals under English law." And we all know that English law was what we were basing our laws on, or our Constitution. Our founding fathers were writing a Constitution 100 years before women could even own property. These men were products of their time, and yet they were progressive thinkers believing in equality and justice that as Americans we have evolved into. Is the work finished? Even with the likes of Martin Luther King or Robert F. Kennedy? No. This country is still evolving. The gift that we received from our founding fathers is that they opened up a crack They debated issues such as slavery. They debated who should be participants in our government and who should not be. Did they come to the decisions that we today would make? Of course they didn't. But if you look at them in the context of their time, we have been given the greatest gift of almost any country in the world. Our founding fathers had to have been some of the most intelligent, progressive thinkers of any group of men that have ever been assembled in one time. I, for one, admire our founding fathers. I also, anytime I hear God bless America, in my head I say, God bless our smart, progressive founding fathers. Thank you.
No, that's great. I was so taken by the speech. I just enjoyed it. That was